The rise of a hidden heroine. Imagine a world where your faith could get you killed, where your identity had to be hidden just to survive, where you were taken from your home, renamed, and forced to live in a palace among strangers. This is not fiction. This is the real story of a young Jewish girl named Hadassah, but the world would come to know her as Queen Esther, and what she did would change the course of an empire. A dark empire and a dangerous king. The story begins in the opulent and dangerous court of King Xerxes of Persia. He ruled over 127 provinces, from India to Ethiopia. A king known not for mercy, but for ego and excess. After banishing his queen, Vashti, for defying him, Xerxes launched a kingdom-wide search for a new queen. Thousands of young women were taken into the palace. Among them, Hadassah, a beautiful Jewish orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai. But no one knew she was Jewish. No one could know. Because being a Jew in Persia meant living in the shadows. A hidden identity. A divine plan. Hadassah's name was changed to Esther. She entered the palace not as a princess, but as a captive. Yet, God was already writing a bigger story. For an entire year, Esther was prepared, bathed in oils, trained in etiquette, made into an image of Persian royalty. But nothing could prepare the empire for what would happen next. Because this young woman, hidden behind layers of protocol and perfume, was about to shake the throne of the most powerful man on earth. And she didn't even know it yet. Favor that can't be explained. When Esther's time came to appear before the king, she didn't rely on appearance or politics. She walked in obedience, grace, and divine favor. And something supernatural happened. The moment Xerxes saw her, he was captivated. He chose her, above all others, to be Queen of Persia. But this wasn't a Cinderella story. This was divine positioning. God had placed Esther in the palace. Not for comfort, but for a calling. Drop a comment. God, use me like Esther. Like this video if you believe God still raises people for such a time as this. Share this with someone going through a hidden season. Subscribe, because the real war is about to begin, and Esther must decide, stay silent or speak up and risk death. The conspiracy of death. Beneath the glittering halls of the Persian palace, a dark plot was forming. One that would threaten not just Esther, but every Jewish man, woman, and child across the empire. Enter Haman, the enemy in power. His name was Haman, a powerful advisor to the king. Arrogant, cunning, ruthless. He rose through the ranks of the empire by deception and flattery. But Haman had a problem. A man named Mordecai, Esther's cousin, refused to bow to him. Not out of rebellion, but out of devotion to God. For Jews bowed only to the Almighty, never to men. That small act of courage ignited a fire of hatred in Haman's heart. But Haman didn't want to just punish Mordecai. He wanted revenge on all Jews. So he did the unthinkable. A decree of genocide. Haman devised a plan. He manipulated King Xerxes into signing a decree. All Jews in the empire were to be killed on a single day. This wasn't war. It was legalized genocide. An empire-wide extermination order. Men, women, children, all condemned. And once the king's seal was placed, it couldn't be undone. Not even by the king himself. The news spread like wildfire. Panic, fear, wailing in the streets. But there was one person who could do something. One person positioned in the very heart of power. Queen Esther. Esther's crossroads. Mordecai sent word to Esther, begged her to act. But Esther hesitated. No one could approach the king uninvited, not even the queen. To do so meant certain death, unless the king extended his golden scepter. 4 days, Esther wrestled with fear, with the weight of her people's fate, with the possibility of her own execution. And then came one of the most powerful lines in Scripture. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? That was the moment, the shift. The fire lit inside her heart. A queen's bravery is born. Esther made a choice, not as a queen, but as a servant of God. She told Mordecai, "Go, gather all the Jews, fast for me. I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." Those words echo across history. A young woman, alone, terrified, but willing to die to save others. Comment below, "I was born for such a time as this." Like this video if Esther's bravery is stirring something in your soul. Share this story, because courage like this is contagious. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next part. The silent battle behind closed doors, and the divine twist that turns death into deliverance. The silent battle for a nation. 3 days passed. 3 days of fasting, weeping, and desperate prayers. Esther didn't eat. She didn't drink. She fought in silence. Not with swords, but with surrender. And then, the moment came. Esther put on her royal robes. Not for beauty, not for status, but to enter the throne room of life and death. Walking into danger. Imagine this. A massive golden chamber. Guards lining the walls. A king seated on a throne. Cold, powerful, unreadable. Esther walks in, uninvited. Every step could be her last. Silence. The king sees her. Time seems to freeze. And then, he raises the golden scepter. She's safe. Esther approaches. She bows. And the king asks, "What is your request, Queen Esther? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." But Esther doesn't rush. Because what happens next is a masterclass in strategy and divine timing. The first invitation. Instead of revealing Haman's plot right away, Esther invites the king and Haman to a private banquet. It's bold. It's calculated. It's brilliant. At the banquet, the king asks again, "What is your request?" Esther invites them to a second banquet. Why? Because God was working behind the scenes. And something needed to happen first. A sleepless night and a twist of providence. That night, the king can't sleep. He orders the royal records to be read aloud. And guess what story comes up? The one where Mordecai saved the king's life from an assassination plot, yet was never rewarded. Coincidence? No. Divine orchestration? Absolutely. The next morning, Haman walks in, ready to ask the king for permission to execute Mordecai. But before he can speak, the king says, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Haman, in his arrogance, thinks the king means himself, and describes a lavish celebration. The king replies, "Great. Do all of that for Mordecai the Jew." Humiliation. Divine reversal. The proud is brought low, and the humble is exalted. The second banquet, the truth unleashed. Later that day, at Esther's second banquet, the moment comes. The king asks once more, "What is your request?" Esther speaks, her voice calm but fierce. "If I have found favor in your eyes, spare my life and the life of my people. For we have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king, stunned, demands, "Who is the man who has dared to do this?" Esther turns and points. "This vile Haman." Comment, God is the master of divine reversals. Smash that like button if this twist gave you chills. Share this video. Someone you know needs to see that God is working behind the scenes in their life too. Hit subscribe for the next part. Haman's fall, the king's decree, and a nation's miraculous salvation. The fall of Haman. The atmosphere in the banquet hall turned to fire. The king stood up in rage, storming out of the room. Haman, terrified, fell at Esther's feet, begging for his life. But it was too late. The tables had turned. The plotter was now the prey. The manipulator, exposed. A twist of justice. While the king was outside, cooling his fury, Haman, desperate, throws himself onto Esther's couch. At that exact moment, the king walks back in. It looked like an attack on the queen. The king didn't hesitate. One of his guards said, "There's a gallows 75 feet high. built by Haman, for Mordecai. The king replied, "Hang him on it." Just like that, Haman, the architect of destruction, was destroyed by his own creation. Poetic justice? Divine intervention? Both. But the decree still stands. Haman was gone. But the decree to kill the Jews? It was still active. Persian law could not be revoked, even by the king himself. The date of destruction was still coming, and thousands across the empire were still preparing to attack the Jews. Esther had saved her own life. But her mission wasn't over. The final plea. Once again, Esther risked everything. She approached the king, this time weeping, pleading, "How can I bear to see disaster fall on my people?" The king, moved by her courage and love, empowered Esther and Mordecai to write a new decree, one that would not cancel the first, but would give the Jews the right to defend themselves on the day of attack. A new decree, a new hope. Messages were sent throughout the empire. Riders galloped from province to province with the news. The Jews could now fight back. A surge of strength and hope swept through the Jewish communities. The hunted were now warriors. The victims were now victors. And on the fateful day, when the enemies came, the Jews stood together, prayed together, and fought together. And they won. A new era. Mordecai was elevated to second in command of the empire. Esther remained queen, but now with influence, power, and a voice that echoed through generations. Their courage became a legacy. The Jews established the Feast of Purim to commemorate their deliverance. To this day, it is celebrated with joy, remembrance, and the reading of the Book of Esther. Drop a comment. God fights for his people. Like this video if justice gave you chills. Share this with someone who needs hope in a hopeless battle. Subscribe to stay with us for the final act, Esther's legacy, the lessons we must learn today, and how you can walk in divine purpose. The legacy of courage. Esther's story didn't end in the palace. It echoed beyond scrolls and sand, across centuries, into every heart that has ever faced fear, injustice, or a call bigger than themselves. She didn't just save her people. She became a symbol of divine purpose. A reminder that one voice, lifted at the right time, can change the course of history. Born for such a time as this. Esther didn't have an army. She had no political power, no prophetic vision, just faith, and the bravery to act when silence would have been easier. She reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to stand even when your knees tremble. For such a time as this. Those words still resonate today. You might not be a queen. You might not live in a palace. But you have a purpose, a destiny, a mission only you can fulfill. When God is silent, he is still working. What's amazing about the Book of Esther is this. God's name is never mentioned, not once. And yet, his fingerprints are on every moment. Every delay, every reversal, every coincidence. Esther teaches us that even when God seems silent, he is never absent. He works through ordinary people, in ordinary places, to accomplish extraordinary things. Your voice matters. Esther could have stayed silent. She could have stayed safe. But she spoke. She stood. She surrendered. And because of that, a nation lived. What about you? Who needs your voice today? Who needs your courage? Your influence? Your prayer? Comment. I choose courage over comfort. Like this if Esther's story stirred something in your soul. Share this message. It could be the spark someone else needs to rise. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to watch our final block, where we bring everything together with a powerful conclusion and timeless reflection. A call to destiny. Esther's story is not just ancient history. It's a living message. A divine whisper reminding us that ordinary people, you, me, all of us, can be chosen for extraordinary purposes. You may never wear a crown. You may never step into a throne room. But make no mistake. You were born for such a time as this. What is your such a time? Your workplace. your family, your generation. Your platform, however big or small, is your divine assignment. You're not here by accident. You're here on purpose, for a purpose. God is still looking for modern-day Esthers, those willing to fast, pray, and rise when it's hardest to stand. When the world demands silence, you were born to speak. When fear says hide, you were born to shine. The moral of Esther's story. If there's one lesson from Esther that echoes through eternity, it's this: God can use anyone who is willing. Not the loudest, not the strongest, not the most qualified, but the one who says, "Here I am." Esther was an orphan girl in exile, but with faith and courage, she rewrote the fate of a nation. So can you. Divine timing still exists. You may be in a season of silence, a waiting room moment, a "God, where are you?" kind of time. But don't lose hope. If the Book of Esther teaches us anything, it's this: when it seems like nothing is happening, God is setting the stage. The king can't sleep. The enemy will trip on his own trap. Your story is still being written, and if you remain faithful, your voice will echo beyond your lifetime. Final reflection. Esther didn't just save her people. She gave us a blueprint for boldness. Her life tells us, say yes to the hard things. Speak truth even when your voice shakes. Trust God even when His hand is hidden. Because you might just be the answer to someone else's prayer. Right now, there's a battle going on in the world. And maybe, just maybe, you are the one chosen to stand in the gap. Don't wait for a crown to make a difference. Start now. This is your moment. This is your purpose. This is your time. Thank you for watching this powerful journey through the life of Queen Esther. We hope her courage inspires you to stand boldly in your own purpose, to never shrink back, and to always believe that God is working, even when He feels distant. Subscribe to our channel for more biblical stories brought to life like never before. Comment below and tell us, what spoke to you the most in Esther's journey? Like this video to help it reach more hearts. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that they were born for such a time as this. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, activate the notification bell so you'll be notified about our posts. See you in the next video.